Hi everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Textbook. We're going to be getting real about learning English. This is Aisha, and today I've got another teacher here with me from Elite. His name's Winston. Welcome, Winston.
Thank you.
And maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you ended up here, things like that.
Sure. My name is Winston. I'm from Toronto, Canada. A few years ago, I moved to Hong Kong for work, and then that ended. And I wanted to stay in Asia, so I decided to move to Malaysia about 4.5 years ago. And I've been teaching English at Elite for just about 2 years now.
Okay, great, good. And what we're going to talk about today is the question of, is having an accent within your English okay? So can you tell us what you think about
Sure.
that?
I actually think it's really cool to have an accent with your English. Myself being a non-white Canadian, people kind of have a wrong first impression of me. Maybe I'm Chinese or Asian of some sort and I'd have an accent, but as soon as I speak, they can hear that I'm a native English speaker. Students always ask me, teacher, how can I speak like you? I want to sound like an American or Canadian. And I always tell them that I think having an accent, especially when you're learning English as a second language or a third or fourth language, having an accent gives your English a lot of character and a lot of personality. Makes you very unique.
Yeah, actually, and just as you're talking, I'm thinking to myself, the people I've met in my life who have like a Spanish accent or a French accent or German, it actually really tells me something about them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and even though their English is perfect, they still have that accent, which adds that extra dimension to them,
Sure.
Makes them really unique. And the other thing I think is that if you're going to be learning English as a second language, it's going to be inevitable that you're going to have an accent.
Absolutely. Your mother tongue or your first language or first two languages are going to influence the way you pronounce words and the way you speak any other language. So I think speaking English with an accent is cool.
Yeah.
I don't want my students to lose their accents, actually. Yeah.
So what is it why do you think students ask, teacher, I want to speak like you? Why do you think they ask that?
Well, I think, coming from Toronto, in North America, it's considered to be kind of a neutral accent. It's the accent that you kind of hear on American TV and on American news. There are a lot of different accents within the U.S. and Canada, which are fairly noticeable. But I think because of like mainstream media, music and movies and TV and whatnot, just students who are exposed to that, that's kind of what they aspire to sound like.
So they see the action movie and they see the guy bring out the guns and he's saying, "Oh God, okay, you sucker, I'm gonna," So
Absolutely,
they want to be
yeah.
like the big tough guy in the movie who's
Sure.
got the amazing American accent.
Yeah, but even like if you listen to English music, British artists and other artists who sing in English, when they sing, you can't really hear their accents.
That's true. Yeah.
And
yeah.
really, the funny thing is too, is accents are all relative, right? So
Yeah.
I think I have no accent because I come from Toronto, but if I go to certain parts of the US, they're like, "Why do you speak funny?" And
Yeah.
if I go to the UK, of course I have an accent, or Australia, I'd have an accent there. So
Yeah.
it's all relative, like where you come from and where you are. So I'm living here in Malaysia and I have an accent because I don't sound like a Malaysian who's speaking English.
Yeah. So for people who are, say, like if they learn English in the Western world, let's say they're students who get the chance to move to the Western world and they need English before they start their course, do you think that they are more likely to pick up the Americanisms or Australianisms?
Yeah, if you're studying in a certain place long enough, you'll pick up local lingo and local pronunciation and stuff like that. So yeah, if you're I guess who you're learning from too. Like here in Malaysia, we don't really have Malaysian teachers teaching English at Elite. So some of the the phrases and the accent and the pronunciation of certain words, that's not being picked up by our students. But definitely some of our students pick up kind of the Canadian accent from the Canadian teachers and a bit of the British accent from some of our British teachers. So
yeah. And what about did you teach actually in Toronto at all?
No, I did not. No.
So when you started teaching, it was here.
It was always in Malaysia.
Yeah. So and I know you've taught students from all over the world.
Yeah.
Would you say that there are some accents that make it difficult for people to pick up pronunciation correctly?
Yeah, I think every depending on your native language, like I've taught Japanese and Korean students, and they have difficulty pronouncing certain letters and certain letter combinations, more so than others. Like Arab students will have different sounds and different words that are harder for them to pronounce. So there is a lot of kind of, I guess, regional pronunciation roadblocks, I guess, just because some sounds don't exist in Arabic and some other sounds don't exist in in some Asian languages and stuff like that.
So what, say for example, with the Arab language, what are some of the ones they have problems with?
Well, P's and B's are very troublesome for some of our for a lot of our students. So words like peach and beach would be sometimes confused or used incorrectly. The sound, which is a very common sound in English, so like computer and birthday and girl, that sound doesn't exist in Arabic, so it's usually comes out as
what is that?
Air. Yeah, or something like that. The closest sound to Arabic would be like an air. So
it would be like sort of girl. It would be
gal or birthday. So I'm probably over emphasizing that sound, but that sound doesn't exist in.
What about Japanese and Korean, like Vietnamese?
F and V
F
would
and
be
V.
F, V, and P. Like those sounds would be difficult. L's, M's, N's. Those kind of letters.
So like the classic sort of Japanese thing, which is they can't say the L, is it, or they?
It's like L and R get kind of confused. That the R is like rolling the R is not easy for them. So sometimes some words get confused.
I think sometimes that this is maybe what some students can confuse with an accent.
Yes, mispronunciation or the way you pronounce and an accent are two different things. And I always tell my students that I will focus on helping the pronunciation rather than trying to fix an accent or sound a certain way. And then, but even within pronunciation, like the way the British pronounce certain vowels and certain sounds are completely different than Americans and Canadians. So,
exactly.
So even words like car. The R is not even pronounced by a lot of British speakers. So, so it comes across as just a vowel sound. Which when we're doing pronunciation exercises in the textbook or from the textbook, because we use a British textbook, my pronunciation sounds completely different than the
it's
tracks.
True. It's true actually, and I think I've said this in other podcasts too, but even within like England itself, like you were saying with the US, that the accent in the north of England is to me completely incomprehensible compared to the south of England. And so I think that we hit on something there about accents, because I do think it's about one thing, like we say, they want to sound like the people who've getting all the glory and all the the fun and life and everything, the
fame and the
but I think that really at the end of the day it really is about focusing maybe first on those key words or those key pronunciation areas that they have problems with, because that's really what you want, isn't it? You want to be understood. And I remember actually having a Vietnamese guy here. We had one student a few years ago. He was IELTS, level.
Yes.
And he said, I'm here because I have a lot of problems speaking. And his written work was just brilliant, and his grammar and everything was perfect. But oh boy, when he opened his mouth, it was just, I don't know how we could get rid of these bad habits.
I've taught a few Vietnamese and Thai students before, and they have this, I don't know if it's a habit. I don't want to say it's a habit, but they have this, they do this thing where they drop the last syllable of a lot of words. And so it's not about pronunciation, it's not about accent. It's like, I used to joke with my students that they're just being lazy. Why aren't you pronouncing the last syllable? And it's like, a teacher, this is how we speak in our language. And I'm like, okay, but then when you drop the last syllable, you change the word sometimes.
Exactly.
Or it doesn't, we can't understand. So it was, kind of enforcing that you need to pronounce every syllable.
Yeah.
And yes, there's silent letters and whatnot, but you really have to pronounce all the syllables because it's hard to understand.
Otherwise, you're incomprehensible.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's what you want.
Absolutely.
Do you want to be able to communicate in a very clear way? If you have a little bit of an accent with that, like I say, that's
it's personality and uniqueness. That's character for sure.
And okay, well, thank you, Winston.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We touched on some extra things here, which was quite interesting. And thank you for your input. And we'll see you again next time.
Okay. See you.
Thanks.